Auburn makes additions on both sides of the football, bolstering the defensive line through the transfer portal and some excitement happening on the offensive end. My name is Bryce Koon. Will Maness is joining me as we talk about what the Tigers are doing and why there might be some optimism on the Plains here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy Friday. We're here on the Crowded Booth with a little bit of a shorter episode, a reaction of sorts, and an update from our good friend Will Maness over there, who has been traversing the wilderness that has been an Auburn fan over the past, well, I was going to say 6 months, but I know for you it's been a little bit longer. What is it, 2 years, 3 years now?
About 2.5 years.
About
yeah.
2.5
You
years.
used a word that I haven't heard a lot lately. It started with an O, I think.
Optimism? Was it
Yeah.
optimism?
What is that? What is that?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that today, as obviously Auburn makes some moves. We're going to start, Will, on the defensive front, where they add, through the transfer portal, the spring portion at least, they bolster that defensive front. Philip Bleedy transfers in from Indiana. That's a battle they won over the likes of Oklahoma and LSU. Isaiah Rakes spent just 4 months on campus out in L.A., the West Coast wasn't good enough. He's going to come back down to the SEC and play for Auburn after spending his first couple of years at A&M.
That money still spends the same.
It does. It does. And then Keiron Crawford makes the jump from everyone's favorite conference, the Sun Belt, productive player at Arkansas State, and will, in the day and age of the transfer portal, this is a cool story. A kid produces at a lower level, gets a chance to, play against better competition. So Keiron Crawford playing that edge position, 6'4", 6'5", 240. Isaiah Rakes, 6'1", 313. Philip Bleedy, 6'3", 295. Want to start it with you. I can offer some insight on Bleedy, but when you look at those three names, you look at what they can do in the interior and the edge. It's a group that Auburn typically is good at, and it feels like they kind of bolstered what they can do in 2024.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They're plugging holes big time here with three really, really good players. I'll just hit on Bleedy quickly because I've got his numbers up. Last year at Indiana, 30 tackles, 10 solo, 20 assists. I mean, he's going to play the middle. He's going to fill that role that is left by Marcus Harris going to the NFL, a big hole on that defensive line. So he's probably going to play nose, but he's got versatility there. You know more about him than I do because you've actually talked to the kid. Keiron Crawford, really good numbers last year, 44 total tackles, 22 solo, 5.5 sacks. Going to be rushing the passer.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaiah Rakes coming from Texas A&M. Everybody knows how Texas A&M has recruited of late, so obviously a lot of talent there. Hasn't done much. And in my opinion, a little bit questionable. He goes to USC and hangs out in Southern California for a few months and jumps right back in the portal. And USC not been known to have a good defense. So this could go one of two ways for Auburn. Hopefully it's a really good player and a guy that just culturally didn't fit out there and will come and play a lot of snaps, productive snaps for Auburn.
Yeah, I mentioned Philip Bleedy. Got a chance to talk to him multiple times. He visited LSU on like a Thursday, turns around, gets to Auburn. I believe it was last Monday he visits, cancels a weekend visit to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is fishing kind of in the bigger ponds, I should say, some of the top guys in that portal. So Bleedy opts to commit to Auburn. The biggest thing, Will, Bleedy, he's married. He's got 2 kids. He wants a chance to go try to be developed for the NFL and try to compete for a championship. LSU fans weren't happy when they heard that. I mentioned a couple people on our board said, well, why is he going to Auburn? But, it feels like
I'm asking the same question.
You might be asking the same question. And the question of playing time has even come up. Why there? LSU legitimately had a walk-on playing in their 2 deep at the interior defensive line position. You can't have that. So the opportunity was there, but obviously whether it's Auburn's NIL money, whether it's the recruiting in general, got the job done with these 3 guys. And I would say this too, 6'3", 295, 6'1", 313 between Rakes and Bleedy. You have to have interior presence, especially with Auburn needing to kind of continue to maybe be led by the defense as this offense, we're going to talk about it in a second. They needed to kind of recoup that group. I like what they did. And then I mentioned Crawford on the outside. Look, Auburn's been known for that pass rush. They lost a big one in 2023. Will, I know it's way too early. Do you feel like they have done enough to put themselves in a position to maybe feel better about what they lost after last season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know me, I've been more negative than probably anybody on the state of Auburn football, and I think especially with Bleedy and Rakes, you're at least filling the middle right there. You're gonna be tough against the run. I know everybody's spreading out and airing the ball out nowadays, but you still got to stop the run in the SEC. These are two guys, two big body guys that can fill those holes and do that. Now, obviously, pass rushing is really a bit of an art form, and Crawford really good at the Sun Belt level. How does that translate to the SEC level? I think we'll have to wait and see. But I think he's a guy that can come in and start right away or play a lot of snaps, at least be in the two deep right away.
Yeah, that's obviously big news. They lost obviously some big pieces of the puzzle. And the very least, you look at the production, you look at on paper, this should fill that need. A regular season could be a whole different case. All right, we move on now to the offense. The biggest weakness is Auburn and the receiver room. We've talked about this. They did a good job in the winter portal. At least I felt like they went and added another Sunbelt guy, Robert Lewis, who should be dynamic in the slot. Put up some good numbers last year, over 800 yards receiving, I believe, around 7 touchdowns. They did a couple other things. They brought in a couple other guys. Big freshman Cam Coleman looked unreal during spring practice. And then you still have Perry Thompson, who signed that letter of intent and will be on campus in the summer. But, Will, the biggest addition is arguably, and you kind of mentioned before we started, the Big Ten's best. Keandre Lambert-Smith commits to Auburn out of the portal. I will say this, whether it works out or not, you do have to applaud the effort of Hugh Freeze saying, hey, we've got some really fun young guys in this room, but we need to go out and get a guy who's done some stuff at the college level to kind of help these guys come along. Because if you just let Cam Coleman run out there double teamed, it's not only going to stunt his development, stunt his growth, but teams are going to key in on him pretty frequently.
Yeah, that was coming, no doubt about it. Cam Coleman was going to be bracketed, double teamed. How are you going to do it? They're just going to, defenses were going to take him out of the game every game he plays in. He's that good. But yeah, Keandre Lambert-Smith, a guy who was set to be the number one returning wide receiver in the Big Ten based on production. The number one receiver last year for Penn State, he had 53 catches, 673 yards, 4 touchdowns. Pretty good. I mean, you talk about how bleak the Auburn receiver room was. This is a huge get. He's going to play right away. He's going to start right away. It gets another guy on the outside for this receiver room. Now you have him, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and Cam Coleman on the outside. Robert Lewis is a slot guy. He was very productive at Georgia State. He'll come in and play the slot for Auburn. Take the pressure off another young guy, Bryce Kane, who projects to be a slot receiver, another 4-star receiver from the 2024 class. So, yeah, I mean, you think back to signing day in December, the end of the season last year, the wide receiver room was the weakest room at Auburn, both sides of the ball. It's not anymore. I would argue that it's probably the best room. There's the most talent in that room than any other position group on this team.
Yeah, and I like what you said too. I mean, look, you applaud the effort of what Hugh Freeze and this company did. Hey, we've got some good young talent. We got to help them out. And most notably, Will, this is where we get to your opinion piece, your column of sorts here. It not only has to help out the receiver room. I agree with you. The receiver room had to be better. That was the big calling card in year one for Freeze, and in year one for starting quarterback Payton Thorne was, well, the excuse might have been, we got to be better around him. They've improved. I don't know if it's an all SEC level offense, but what I do know is it's better than what they put on the field last year. So it begs the question, and here's the big kicker heading into 2024. There should be no excuses for Payton Thorne, Will. And if there are, what are they? And how long should this leash be? Because if he's not the guy, they got to identify that pretty early on, because they do have weapons for Hugh Freeze to utilize and scheme with.
Well, yeah, you talk about if he's not the guy, they got to figure it out quickly, but it's very concerning. You know, the portal closes, a week from Tuesday or in a couple weeks. Auburn is not interested in finding another quarterback. So it's going to be Payton Thorne. He kind of has to be that guy. Holden Garner, we've seen it in limited time, limited gameplay. It hasn't done a lot. Hasn't really excited anybody. Hank Brown, saw him in the bowl game, really air it out. He just kind of went out there and just said, you know what, this is my chance. I'm just going to sling it. And he had a lot of success. I really liked what I saw from Hank Brown. Hated what I saw from Payton Thorne in that game, which I think is concerning when you have a month to prepare for a bowl game like that and for a Maryland defense that was nowhere near the top statistically, nationally, or even in the Big Ten, and they shut down this Auburn offense. But you're right. it had to get better. The offensive line is a lot better. They've done a really, really good job there too. What's his name? Percy Lewis, left tackle coming from Mississippi State. A huge get. You can kick Dylan Wade inside where he projects better at the next level as a guard, will probably play better at left guard. So the offensive line is better. Connor Liu is a guy that looks like he's going to be an All-American at center. Played a lot as a freshman last year in relief. Didn't start the year there, but it looks to be really good. So that offensive line looks a lot better. The receiver room, we just talked about how much better they are. Running back will still be the same. We know the talent's there, Jarquez Hunter. So, yeah, there's no excuses on Payton Thorne. And, you know, the only person that I think that I've heard make excuses for him thus far is the head coach. And that to me is very concerning. A lot of the things that Hugh Freeze has said, I haven't really agreed with. I don't like how he's handled it coming in. But, you know, being very much on the outside as I am, I put more stock into what the players are saying and how the players feel about him, especially after the guy that was here before, who said all the right things but did everything else wrong. I can live with a guy that says everything wrong but does it right. And the players, I mean, they definitely play for him. You see that by the few number of outgoings in the transfer portal after a tough season like last year was. And the guys that have left, I think they've been okay with leaving. So, but yeah, no excuses now for Payton Thorne. We've got to see, what was it, 2021 Payton Thorne when he was at Michigan State and they had a really good year and won the Peach Bowl. And this is it for him anyway. So he needs to come out, play loose, sling the ball around, because this is it for him as a college quarterback. He's got to go pro, whether that's going to be the NFL or the UFL or Canada, whatever it is. He's got to show something to somebody that he can play.
And maybe to himself too. I mean, look, he took a chance on himself to want to enter the portal, wanted to compete at a higher level, in his opinion, come down to the SEC, be a part of I don't want to say a new program, but it's a new leadership, new era of Auburn football. And I want to kind of end it with this, Will. If it's not him, who did you leave the spring feeling like the number 2 guy is? Who would you like to see? And obviously, as I'm looking at this recruiting rankings, I mean, you can't deny what Walker White puts on the field. I mentioned it to you, like when I was in San Antonio for the All-American game, I loved what this kid had, from his moxie, from his makeup, and his ability to kind of have a quick release and throw that back shoulder fade, which he did a ton of times. Is he like the guy that fans really want to see, or is it a couple of the names that you mentioned? Like, who is the next guy up if Thorne does not get the job done early in the season?
Well, yeah, Walker White, he's got the look. There's no doubt about it. He's got the arm strength. He's got the composure that you want to see. But I do not like the idea of throwing a true freshman into the fire in the SEC, especially with that offensive line. I said it is much improved, and it is much improved, but it's still bottom half at best in the SEC compared to the other teams and the defensive lines Auburn's going to have to go up against. So, you know, I really don't want to throw him to be thrown out there to the wolves that quickly, because I think that can be more detrimental, has a better chance of being detrimental than it is positive for him. I really liked what I saw out of Hank Brown in that second half against Maryland in the bowl game, just letting it all hang out. He was making progressions, which for an Auburn quarterback, if you've watched him closely, is rare to see an Auburn quarterback look to his second and third option and then throw the ball. That has not happened for a number of years. So, and Hank Brown is a guy that should have been more highly rated coming out of high school, in my opinion, and a lot of people that know more about recruiting than I do, they think the same thing. He played for Trent Dilfer in high school, in NFL, a Super Bowl winning quarterback was his high school coach. He's got the size, he's got the arm strength. He should have been probably a 4-star, but he only got up to 3. So yeah, but you know, the reports coming out of spring, he had an okay spring. He didn't really hurt himself, but he didn't really help himself either. So I think just based on seniority, he's number 3 right now behind Holden Garner.
Yeah, you mentioned Hank Brown was a 24/7 Sports composite 3-star, played up in Nashville Lipscomb Academy under Trent Dilfer. And I will tell you this too, anytime you see that connection, you have to think if this kid's going to hit the portal, UAB might be a landing spot if he wants to kind of stay close to where he is.
No doubt about it.
Wouldn't be a bad choice over there in Birmingham. But hey, Auburn has made the adjustments, Will, and I will say this. I know that like you've been down on them. We're going to take a look at schedules. They're like boom or bust for me. Like, I think they are such a high risk, high reward team. Like, if you're putting money on them this year, I was just looking at their schedule. To me, I think that, like, best case scenario for them could be like a 9-3 season where they really kind of take off. They lose to some of your typical suspects. Worst case, it's got to be like missing a bowl game, and we'll talk about later in the coming months what that could mean. But is that kind of where you sit?
It is, and missing a bowl game, I think, is still very much a real possibility because if Payton Thorne doesn't play to the way that he probably should play, that we've seen him play in the past, and the question marks behind him, I don't see how this offense puts up enough points to even win 6 games, because this is it is a tough schedule. It is tough. Auburn still gets Georgia and Alabama. That didn't change with the new conference and the new scheduling. So, and get Oklahoma, a newcomer, which is going to be different. But like you said, we'll go more into depth with schedules later. But yeah, boom or bust for sure.
Yeah, boom or bust, high risk, high reward. We'll take a look at their schedule here in the next couple weeks and months. He's Will Maness. My name's Bryce Koon. Ralph Leary in the background. You're watching The Crowded Booth. This is taking a look at what Auburn has added, and is it enough to have a better 2024 season? Thanks so much for tuning in. This is The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.